Leora's hands were shaking as she held the contract. One signature, and her family would eat. One signature, and she'd become a liar in a world that devoured girls like her for sport. The matriarch's eyes were ice. You'll pretend to be engaged to my son. 6 months. Then you disappear. Liora looked at the number on the paper, enough to save her father's life, keep the roof over their heads, feed her siblings for a year. Outside, Darian Thorne leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her like she was already a mistake. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. This was a trap, and they both knew it. If you want to see how Liora survives a world designed to crush her, if you want to know whether she breaks or rewrites the rules entirely, stay until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The flower shop smelled like dying roses. Liora pressed her palm against the wooden counter, splinters biting into her skin as she stared at the ledger. Red ink bled across every page. Rent overdue. Supplier payments missed. Her father's medicine, 2 weeks behind. The numbers didn't lie, and they didn't care. Leo, I'm hungry. She turned. Marin stood in the doorway, all 7 years of her, barefoot and holding the doll Liora had stitched together from fabric scraps. Her sister's ribs showed through her thin dress. I know, Bug. Liora forced a smile she didn't feel. Go see if Tam found any bread. Marin hesitated, her dark eyes too old for her face, then shuffled back toward the cramped room behind the shop where their father lay coughing into stained sheets. Liora exhaled, gripping the counter harder. 3 months since the accident at the docks. 3 months since her father's back gave out under a crate he shouldn't have been carrying. 3 months of watching the only parent she had left waste away while she scrambled to keep them all alive. The bell above the door chimed. She didn't look up. We're closed. You're always closed, a woman's voice said, smooth and cold as polished marble. Yet somehow still in business. Leora's head snapped up. The woman standing in her shop didn't belong there. Everything about her screamed wealth. The cut of her charcoal coat, the way her silver hair was pinned without a strand out of place, the emerald brooch at her throat that probably cost more than Liora would make in 5 years. She looked around the shop like she was examining a specimen. Can I help you? Leora's voice came out sharper than she intended. The woman's lips curved. Not quite a smile. I certainly hope so. You're Liora Vale? Warning bells went off in Leora's head. Nobody who wore clothes like that knew her name. Who's asking? Someone who can solve your problems. The woman pulled off her gloves, one finger at a time. My name is Celeste Thorne, and I have a proposition for you. Thorne. Leora's stomach dropped. Everyone in the lower city knew that name. The family that owned half the district's factories, who sat on the council, whose estate sprawled across the northern hills like a monument to excess. I don't do business with... Your father needs surgery. Celeste's words cut through the air like a blade. Spinal reconstruction. Expensive. Impossible on a florist's income. She paused, letting that sink in. Your siblings are malnourished. Your rent is 3 months overdue. Your supplier has filed a complaint with the Merchants Guild. She tilted her head. Shall I continue? Leora's hands curled into fists. Get out. Sit down. This is my shop. Barely. Celeste moved to the single chair by the window and sat, crossing her legs with the ease of someone who'd never been told no in her life. Sit down. Liora didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at her to throw this woman out, lock the door, pretend this conversation never happened. But Celeste Thorne had just rattled off her family's entire situation, like she'd been watching them for weeks. And that meant she wanted something. Slowly, Liora sank onto the stool behind the counter. Better? Celeste folded her hands in her lap. I'll be direct. I need you to pretend to be engaged to my son. Liora blinked. What? Darian. My youngest. 28, unmarried, and utterly determined to stay that way. Celeste's expression didn't change. It's become a problem. You can't be serious. I'm never anything but serious. Celeste reached into her coat and pulled out a folded paper. 6 months. You'll attend events, be seen at his side, play the role of dutiful fiancé. At the end of that time, you'll stage a quiet separation. Mutual incompatibility. No scandal. She placed the paper on the counter between them. In exchange, your father receives the best medical care available. Your family's debts are cleared. You'll receive a monthly stipend, more than enough to keep your business afloat and your siblings fed. Liora stared at the document. Her mouth had gone dry. You're insane. I'm practical. Celeste stood smoothing her coat. My son refuses every match I arrange. The council is questioning his commitment to the family name. There are expectations. Social obligations he will not fulfill willingly. But if he's already engaged to someone so clearly unsuitable, then the pressure redirects. And in 6 months, when it ends, he'll be more amenable to a proper match. Unsuitable, Liora repeated, tasting the word. It should have stung. It didn't. She'd been called worse. Don't misunderstand, you're perfect precisely because you're not one of us. Celeste's gaze swept over Liora, her patched dress, her work-roughened hands, the dirt under her fingernails. No one will believe it's real, which makes the eventual split entirely believable. Leora's mind raced. This was insane. This was a trap. This was... Marin's voice drifted from the back room, thin and tired. Leo, Papa's asking for water again. A lifeline she couldn't afford to refuse. Why me? Liora heard herself ask. There are thousands of girls in this city. Because you're desperate. Celeste said it without cruelty, just fact. Because you'll agree, and because... She paused, studying Liora with something that might have been approval. You look like you can hold your own. You'll need to. Against what? My world. Celeste pulled her gloves back on. It will try to destroy you, and my son will not make this easy. Darian despises deception, and he'll know exactly what this is. She moved toward the door, then stopped. You have until tomorrow to decide. Come to Thorn House at noon. If you don't show, I'll assume that's your answer. She left without waiting for a response. Liora sat frozen, staring at the paper on her counter. The number at the bottom made her head spin. More money than she'd seen in her entire life. Enough to save her father. Enough to give Marin and Tam a real childhood. Enough to sleep without the weight of unpaid bills crushing her chest. All she had to do was lie. What? She didn't sleep that night. Liora lay on the thin mattress she shared with Marin, staring at the ceiling while her sister's breathing evened out beside her. In the next room, her father coughed, wet and rattling. Tam, 15 and trying so hard to be the man of the house, had gone to bed without dinner again. Said he wasn't hungry. Liar. They were all liars now, weren't they? Pretending they'd be fine. Pretending they could survive like this. Liora closed her eyes. Her mother used to say, we're Vales, we don't beg and we don't break. She'd said it when creditors came pounding. Said it when the factory bosses cut wages. Said it right up until the fever took her 4 years ago, leaving Liora to hold everything together with spit and stubbornness. But what did pride buy you when your family was starving? Liora got up, moved to the window. Outside, the lower city sprawled in the darkness. Narrow streets, cramped buildings, smoke from factory chimneys staining the sky even at night. Somewhere up in the hills, the Thorn estate glittered with electric lights and clean air, and people who'd never missed a meal in their lives. Unsuitable. She almost laughed, as if she needed Celeste Thorn to tell her that. But the truth was simpler and uglier. She didn't have a choice. Not really. The next morning, she told her father she had a delivery uptown. He was too feverish to ask questions. Tam gave her a suspicious look but didn't push. Marin just hugged her legs and made her promise to bring back something sweet. Liora walked to Thorn House. It took 2 hours on foot, past the merchant quarter, through the park where she'd never been allowed to play as a child, up the winding hill roads where the air actually smelled clean. The estate's iron gates were 12 feet tall, topped with gold finials shaped like thorns. A guard stepped out of the gatehouse, looked her up and down. Deliveries go around back. I'm here to see Mrs. Thorn. Leora's voice didn't shake. Small victory. The guard's eyebrow went up. He clearly didn't believe her, but he stepped inside, made a call, came back looking confused. You're expected. Main entrance. The gate swung open. Liora walked through, and it felt like crossing into another country. The grounds stretched forever. Manicured gardens, fountains, paths lined with trees she couldn't name. The house itself was a palace. white stone, columns, windows that reflected the sky like mirrors. She climbed the steps. Before she could knock, the door opened. An older man in a butler's uniform stood there, expression neutral. "Miss Vale, this way." She followed him through halls that could have swallowed her entire shop 3 times over. Paintings on the walls, actual oil paintings, not prints. Rugs so thick, her footsteps made no sound. Everything polished and perfect and cold. He led her to a study. Celeste sat behind a massive desk, writing something. She didn't look up. "Sit." Liora sat. Celeste finished whatever she was doing, set down her pen, and finally met Liora's eyes. "You came. You knew I would. I hoped." Celeste pushed a document across the desk. Thicker than yesterday's paper. "Contract. Read it." Liora pulled it toward her. The language was dense, legal terminology she had to parse slowly, but the essentials were clear. 6 months, public engagement, no physical relationship required, complete discretion, payment schedule, termination clause. And at the bottom, the number that would change everything. "I'll need a lawyer to—" "No lawyers." Celeste's voice was firm. "This arrangement stays between us. You sign now or you leave." Liora looked up. "That's not fair." "No." Celeste leaned back in her chair. "But fairness is a luxury neither of us can afford right now. I need this done quickly and quietly. You need your family saved. Those are the terms." Leora's jaw tightened. "What about your son? Does he know?" "Darian will be informed today." "That's not what I asked." Something flickered in Celeste's expression, brief, quickly buried. "My son makes poor decisions when left to his own devices. This is better for everyone." "Better for you, you mean?" "Yes." Celeste didn't flinch from it. "I won't pretend otherwise. But it's also better for you, your father, your siblings. Sometimes everyone's interests align, Miss Vale. This is one of those times." Liora stared at the contract, at the pen lying beside it. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But Marin's face flashed through her mind. Too thin, too tired, too young to look that hopeless. Her father's coughing. Tam's hollow cheeks. She picked up the pen. "Smart girl." Celeste almost smiled. Liora signed her name. The ink looked like blood. Celeste took the contract, added her own signature, then stood. "Come. Time to meet your fiancé." Darian Thorne was not what Liora expected. She'd pictured someone like his mother, cold, calculating, perfectly pressed. Instead, the man standing in the drawing room looked like he'd just rolled out of bed, dark hair disheveled, shirt half untucked. He was reading a book, completely absorbed, and didn't glance up when they entered. "Darian." Celeste's voice could have cut glass. He turned a page. "Mother, put the book down. I'm at a good part." Celeste walked over and plucked the book from his hands. He let her, watching with an expression of mild annoyance. "Rude," he said. Then his eyes found Liora. Dark green, sharp. They swept over her once, cataloging, then dismissed her just as quickly. "Who's this?" "Your fiancé." The silence that followed was spectacular. Darian blinked, looked at his mother, back at Liora. "My what?" "Liora Vale, you're engaged. Congratulations." Celeste set his book on a side table. "The announcement goes out tomorrow." "No." Darian's voice dropped, losing all its casual tone. "Absolutely not. It's already done." "Then undo it." "I can't. Won't." Celeste folded her arms. "You've refused every reasonable option, so I've made the choice for you." Darian turned to Liora, really looked at her this time. She saw the moment he registered her clothes, her calloused hands, the gap between her world and his. His expression hardened. "You agreed to this?" Liora lifted her chin. "Yes." "Why?" "That's none of your business." His laugh was bitter. "It's literally my business. You're supposedly marrying me." "Engaged to you," Liora corrected. "And it's temporary." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." He turned to Celeste. "You can't seriously expect—" "I expect you to play your part," Celeste interrupted. "Both of you. 6 months. Then it ends quietly, and we move on." This is insane. This is necessary. Celeste's voice went cold. You've made yourself a liability, Darian. The council is questioning our family's stability. Your refusal to fulfill basic social obligations reflects on all of us. This solves that problem. By lying to everyone? By creating the appearance of normalcy long enough for you to stop being an embarrassment. Darian flinched, just slightly. But Liora saw it. Celeste continued, relentless. You'll attend events together, be seen, smile, make it believable. At the end of 6 months, you'll part ways amicably, and you can go back to your books and your solitude. Until then, you'll do this. She looked between them. Both of you. Liora felt Darian's gaze on her again, harder this time, assessing. What's she getting out of it? He asked his mother, but kept his eyes on Liora. That's between Miss Vale and myself. Money, then. Darian's tone was flat. How much? Leora's hands clenched. Enough. Enough for what? New dress? Night out? Enough to keep my family from starving. The words came out sharper than she intended. Enough to save my father's life. Enough that I don't have to watch my 7-year-old sister go to bed hungry. So yes, enough. That shut him up. The silence stretched. Then Darian turned away, running a hand through his hair. This is a nightmare. This is reality, Celeste said. Adjust. She left, just walked out, closing the door behind her, leaving Liora alone with her fake fiancé. Darian didn't move for a long moment. Then he grabbed his book from the side table, dropped into a chair, and opened it. Liora stood there, unsure. Should we? No. I just thought, whatever you're thinking, the answer's no. He didn't look up from the page. My mother's forcing this. Fine. But don't expect me to pretend we're friends. Leora's temper flared. I'm not asking to be your friend. Good. Because we're not. He turned another page. You're here for money. I'm here because I don't have a choice. Let's not pretend it's anything else. I wasn't planning to. Great. Then we understand each other. Finally, he looked up. Stay out of my way. I'll stay out of yours. We show up where we need to, smile for the cameras, and count down the days until this is over. That work for you? Liora wanted to throw something at him, wanted to tell him exactly what she thought of spoiled rich boys who treated people like inconveniences. But she thought of Marin, her father, the contract she'd just signed. Fine, she bit out. Wonderful. He went back to his book. Doors that way. Liora turned on her heel and left before she said something that would blow up the deal entirely. The next 2 weeks were a crash course in humiliation. Celeste assigned Liora a tutor, a severe woman named Madame Colette, who spent 8 hours a day teaching her how to walk, sit, speak, eat, and exist in high society. Every movement was wrong. Every word was common. Every instinct had to be retrained. Shoulders back, chin level. You're not a servant. Forks go outside in. No, don't stab the food. Guide it. Enunciate. You sound like you're chewing gravel. Liora endured it because she had to. Because every night she went home to her family's cramped rooms above the shop and saw her father sitting up without coughing, saw Marin's cheeks filling out, saw Tam actually eating 3 meals a day. The money had come through. First installment. Her father was scheduled for surgery next month. So she learned which fork to use. Learned how to make small talk about nothing. Learned to smile without showing teeth. The engagement announcement went public on a Wednesday. Liora saw it in the society papers Madame Colette made her read. Darian Thorne, youngest son of the prominent Thorne family, announces his engagement to Miss Liora Vale, proprietress of Vale's Florals. Proprietress. Like she ran some elegant boutique instead of a failing shop in the lower city. The backlash was immediate. Who is she? Nobody's ever heard of her. Vale? That's a common name. She must be from the lower districts. What could he possibly see in her? Liora read the gossip columns with a sick feeling in her stomach. Madame Colette just sniffed. Ignore it. They'll find something else to talk about soon enough. But they didn't. If anything, it got worse. Invitations started arriving. Dinner parties, charity galas, afternoon teas, all designed to get a look at the mystery girl who'd somehow caught Darian Thorne's attention. and Liora had to attend every single one. The first event was a garden party at the Ashford estate. Celeste sent a dress, ivory silk, delicate embroidery, worth more than Liora's entire wardrobe combined. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Celeste had probably had her measured while she slept. Darian picked her up in a car that cost more than her shop. He didn't speak to her the entire drive. They arrived, and Leora's stomach clenched. The grounds were filled with people in clothes that screamed wealth, holding champagne glasses, laughing that practiced laugh that meant nothing. Everyone turned to look when they stepped out of the car. Darian offered his arm. She took it. His jaw was tight. "Smile," he muttered. "I am smiling. You look like you're being tortured." "Feels like it." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then it was gone. They moved through the crowd. People stared, whispered. A woman in a blue dress approached, all teeth and calculation. "Darian, how wonderful to see you." Her eyes slid to Liora. "And this must be your fiancé. How unexpected." "Vivienne, always a pleasure." Darian's tone suggested it was anything but. "Liora, this is Vivienne Ashford, our host." Liora extended her hand the way Madame Colette had taught her. "Thank you for having us." Vivienne's handshake was limp. "Of course, we're all so curious about you. Darian's kept you such a secret." "We prefer privacy," Darian said smoothly. "Clearly." Vivienne's smile sharpened. "Vale's Florals, is it? I don't think I've heard of it. Where is it located?" "The Lower Merchant District," Liora said, keeping her voice even. "Oh, how quaint." Vivienne's expression said it was anything but. "And how did you two meet? I'm sure everyone's dying to know." Liora felt the trap closing. Celeste had given them a cover story, a chance meeting at a charity function, gradual courtship, mutual interest. But standing here under Vivienne's predatory gaze, the lies felt flimsy. "She delivered flowers to the house," Darian said before Liora could speak. "I saw her arranging them in the hall, started talking, realized she was more interesting than anyone I'd met in years." Vivienne blinked. "How romantic." "I thought so." Darian's arm tightened slightly around Leora's. "If you'll excuse us, I see the Hastings. We should say hello." He steered Liora away before Vivienne could respond. "You didn't have to do that," Liora said quietly. "Do what?" "Lie for me. We have a cover story." "The cover story's boring." He grabbed 2 champagne glasses from a passing server, handed her one. And Vivienne would have picked it apart. She's got a talent for finding weaknesses. "Speaking from experience?" "Unfortunately." He took a sip. "She used to be engaged to my brother, before he wisely broke it off." They moved to a quieter corner of the garden. Liora sipped the champagne. It was good, better than anything she'd tasted, and watched the crowd. Everyone looked so comfortable here, so sure of their place. She felt like an imposter wearing someone else's skin. "You're doing fine," Darian said suddenly. She looked at him, surprised. "What?" "You look like you're about to bolt. Don't. They can smell fear." He nodded toward a cluster of women watching them. "Just remember, they're more interested in tearing each other apart than you. You're just the new toy. Give it a few weeks, and someone else will do something scandalous." "That's supposed to be comforting?" "It's realistic." He finished his champagne. "Come on, let's make the rounds. Sooner we do this, sooner we can leave." The next hour was exhausting. Liora smiled until her face hurt, made small talk about nothing, endured questions that were really accusations wrapped in politeness. Darian stayed at her side, steering conversations when they got too pointed, deflecting when people pushed too hard. It was strange. He clearly hated this arrangement, but in public, he played his part perfectly. By the time they left, Leora's feet were killing her and her head was pounding. They didn't speak until they were back in the car. "That was horrible," Liora said. "Welcome to my world." Darian loosened his tie. "Gets worse before it gets better." "How encouraging." He almost smiled again. "You held your own. Better than I expected." "Low bar." "Very low." He looked at her. "But still, could have been worse." It was probably the closest thing to a compliment she'd get from him. Liora leaned her head back against the seat, closing her eyes. 5.5 months to go. Don't remind me. They drove in silence, but it felt different than before. Less hostile, more like two people stuck in the same trap, trying to survive it together. When they reached her neighborhood, Darian's driver looked uncertain. This wasn't where people like them usually went. "This is fine," Liora said. "Here's good." The car stopped. She reached for the door handle. "Liora." She turned back. Darian was watching her, expression unreadable. "What you said before, about your family." He paused. "I'm sorry, that you're in a position where this is necessary." She didn't know what to say to that, didn't know if he meant it. "Me too," she finally said. She got out. The car pulled away. Liora climbed the stairs to her family's rooms, kicked off the expensive shoes that had tortured her feet all afternoon, and found Marin curled up on the couch with the book Liora had bought her yesterday. "How was your party?" Marin asked. Liora sank down beside her sister, pulling her close. "Exhausting. Did you meet a prince?" "Something like that." Marin giggled. Liora closed her eyes and held her tighter. "Worth it," she told herself. "Whatever it takes." The weeks blurred together. More events, more fake smiles, more nights lying to her family about where she'd been. Tam was getting suspicious. "You're never home anymore." "I'm working," Liora said. "Good clients. Uptown." "Doing what?" "Arrangements. Events." Not technically a lie. He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Her father was too focused on his upcoming surgery to notice much. The doctors Celeste had arranged were confident. He'd walk again. Maybe not perfectly, but enough. Enough to work. Enough to live. That made everything else bearable. What Liora hadn't expected was Darian. He was still cold, still distant. But at events, he stayed close. Ran interference when people got too nosy. Even laughed at a joke she made once. Actual laughter. Not the fake society kind. And sometimes, when it was just them in the car between obligations, they'd talk. Not about anything important. Books he was reading, customers she dealt with, small things. But it was something. One night, after a particularly brutal dinner, where Vivian Ashford had spent 2 hours making pointed comments about Leora's charming provincial manners, Darian drove her home in silence. When they reached her street, he didn't let the driver stop at the usual corner. He got out himself, walked her to her door. "You didn't have to—" "I know." He shoved his hands in his pockets. "Look, I've been difficult about all this. You've been fine. I've been an ass." He met her eyes. "You're in an impossible situation, and I haven't made it easier. So, I'm sorry." Liora stared at him. Darian Thorne apologizing. Should I be worried? Probably. But he almost smiled. "I just mean, we're stuck with each other. Might as well not make each other miserable." "Truce?" "Truce." He offered his hand. She shook it. Something shifted that night. The wall between them didn't come down. Not completely. But it cracked. And Liora found herself wondering what would happen when 6 months was up and this all ended. Whether she'd miss this. Miss him. She pushed the thought away. This was business. A deal. Nothing more. But as she watched his car disappear down the street, she couldn't quite make herself believe it. The invitation arrived on thick cream paper, gold lettering that caught the light. Liora turned it over in her hands, already dreading what it meant. "The annual Founders Gala," she read aloud. Madame Colette stood behind her, arms crossed, looking pleased with herself. "This is the event of the season," Madame Colette finished. 500 guests, every important family in the city, full formal dress, and you'll be on Darian Thorne's arm the entire night. Leora's stomach twisted. "Can't we skip it?" "Absolutely not. This is exactly the kind of visibility Mrs. Thorne wants. Consider it your debut." Madame Colette's expression turned sharp. "And your test. If you can survive this, you can survive anything." That was what Liora was afraid of. 3 days later, she stood in front of a mirror in a gown that probably cost more than her father's surgery. Deep burgundy silk, fitted bodice, skirt that pooled around her feet like liquid. A stylist had done something elaborate with her hair, pinned and twisted, small crystals woven through the dark strands. She looked like someone else, someone who belonged in that world. The illusion was perfect and completely fake. "You'll do," Celeste said from the doorway. She crossed the room, circling Liora like a general inspecting troops. "Remember what we discussed. Smile. Be gracious. Don't volunteer information. Let Darian lead conversations, but don't disappear into the background." "That's contradictory." "Welcome to society." Celeste adjusted one of the crystals in Leora's hair. "You'll also need to dance." Leora's head snapped around. "What? No, we never—" "Did you think you'd stand in a corner all night?" Celeste's eyebrow arched. "The opening waltz is traditional. Darian will dance with you. Try not to step on his feet." "I don't know how to waltz." "Then you'd better learn quickly." Celeste checked her watch. "He'll be here in 10 minutes. She left. Liora stared at her reflection, panic rising in her chest. She'd survived garden parties and dinner conversations. But dancing? In front of 500 people who were all waiting for her to fail? She was going to be sick. A knock at the door. She turned. Darian stood in the doorway, and for a second she forgot how to breathe. He wore formal black, perfectly tailored, hair actually combed for once. He looked every inch the aristocrat his mother wanted him to be. He looked at her, stopped. "You're wearing shoes this time." Liora glanced down at the delicate heels that were already killing her feet. "Apparently required. They look painful." "They are." He stepped into the room, and she caught the faint scent of something clean. Soap, maybe, or whatever expensive cologne rich men wore. "My mother said you can't dance." "Your mother has excellent timing." "She usually does." He offered his hand. "Come here." Liora didn't move. "We don't have time for—" "We have 10 minutes. That's enough." He kept his hand extended. "Trust me." She didn't. Not really. But she took his hand anyway. He pulled her into position, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers. "Basic waltz is just a box step. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Follow my lead." That's what Madame Colette said about everything. And yet you're still alive. He started moving, slowly, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3. Don't look at your feet. Look at me. Liora forced her eyes up. His were darker green in this light, focused. "Better," he said. "Now just—" "No, don't think about it. Feel the rhythm." "That's not helpful." "It's all I've got." He spun her gently. She stumbled. His hand tightened at her waist, keeping her upright. "Okay, we'll work on turns later, just the basic step for now." They moved through the room, him counting, her trying not to trip over the ridiculous dress. Slowly, painfully, she started to get it. The pattern. The timing. "There," Darian said. "See? Not dying. Yet. Optimism. I like it." He guided her through another turn, smoother this time. "Just do this tonight. Don't try anything fancy. Stay close. I'll make sure you don't fall." Something in his voice made her look at him. "Why are you helping me?" "Because watching you crash into a champagne fountain would be entertaining, but probably bad for both of us." He stopped moving, but didn't let go. "And because you're terrified. I can feel it. I'm not—" "Your hand's shaking." She pulled away, clasping her hands together to hide it. "I'm fine." "Liar." But he said it without heat. "Look, this is going to be awful. People will stare. They'll whisper. Vivian Ashford will probably try to corner you and make you feel small. But here's the thing. They want you to fail. So don't." Inspiring speech. "I'm not trying to inspire you. I'm trying to piss you off." His mouth quirked. "Works better." He was right. The panic was fading, replaced by something sharper. Stubbornness. The same thing that had kept her shop open, kept her family fed, kept her standing when everything else fell apart. "Okay," she said. "Let's go." The gala was held at the Grand Hall downtown, a massive building of marble and gold that looked like it had been transplanted from another century. Liora stepped out of the car and immediately wanted to get back in. People everywhere, jewels catching the light, laughter that sounded like breaking glass, cameras flashing as guests arrived. Darian appeared at her side, offering his arm. "Breathe." "I am breathing." "Could have fooled me." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "Shoulders back, chin up. Look like you belong here." "I don't belong here." "Fake it anyway." They walked up the steps. Cameras went off like fireworks. Someone shouted Darian's name. He ignored them, kept moving. Inside was worse. The hall stretched impossibly high, chandeliers dripping crystal, an orchestra playing something classical in the corner, hundreds of people in formal dress, all turning to look as they entered. Liora's grip on Darian's arm tightened. "Easy," he murmured. "Just walk. Smile if you can manage it." She couldn't, but she walked. They made it halfway across the room before the first attack came. "Darian! There you are!" A man in his 50s approached, silver hair, sharp eyes. "And this must be the famous Miss Vale, Marcus Brennan. I sit on the council with your future mother-in-law." Darian's jaw tightened slightly. "Marcus. We've all been so curious." Brennan's gaze swept over Liora like she was livestock. "Tell me, Miss Vale, what does your family do?" "My father worked the docks," Liora said evenly, "before his accident." "The docks? How industrious." Brennan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And your mother?" "Dead." That wiped the smile away. "I'm sorry to hear that." "I'm sure you are." Liora kept her voice pleasant. "Now, if you'll excuse us. Actually, I was hoping to speak with Darian, council business." Brennan's attention shifted. "Just a moment of your time." Darian looked at Liora. She nodded slightly. "I'll get a drink." "Don't go far," Darian said. It almost sounded like a warning. She left them, navigating toward a table lined with champagne glasses. Her hands were shaking again. She grabbed a glass, downed half of it. "Careful, those sneak up on you." Liora turned. A young woman stood beside her, maybe 20, blonde, wearing a dress that cost more than a car. Her smile seemed genuine. "Sorry," the woman said. "Didn't mean to startle you. I'm Caroline Hart." "Liora Vale." "I know." Caroline grabbed her own glass. "Everyone knows. You're the story of the season." "Lucky me." "Isn't it?" Caroline's smile turned sympathetic. "I've been there. Well, not exactly there, but close. I married into this mess 2 years ago. Felt like I'd landed on another planet." Liora studied her. "You're not from here?" "My family's from the western provinces. Money, but not the right kind. Not old enough. Not connected enough." Caroline took a sip. "These people care more about bloodlines than ability. I've noticed. The good news is most of them are idiots." Caroline glanced around, lowering her voice. "The trick is figuring out which ones have actual power and which ones are just loud." Before Liora could respond, a cold voice cut through the air. "How sweet! The strays are bonding." Vivian Ashford materialized like a bad dream, wearing emerald silk and a smile that could draw blood. 2 other women flanked her, one blonde, one brunette, both watching Liora like cats watching a mouse. "Vivian," Caroline said flatly, "still working on your personality, I see." "Still pretending you matter, Caroline?" Vivian's attention shifted to Liora. "And Darian's little project. You look almost presentable tonight. Did Celeste dress you herself?" Liora set down her champagne glass carefully. "Is there something you want?" "Just curious." "We all are." Vivian stepped closer. "How does a girl from the docks end up engaged to Darian Thorne? It's such an unlikely story." "We met. We connected. It happens." "Does it?" Vivian tilted her head. "Because I've known Darian for years, and he's never shown interest in anyone, let alone someone so unsuitable." The word hit like a slap. Liora felt her face heat. "I think you're projecting," Caroline said, "considering he dropped you the second he had the chance." Vivian's eyes flashed. "I was never with Darian." "No, you were with his brother, who also dropped you. Must be exhausting, getting rejected by an entire family." "You little ladies." Darian appeared beside Liora, his hand settling at the small of her back. "Are we having fun?" Vivian's expression smoothed instantly. "Darian, we were just getting to know your fiancé." "I'm sure you were." His tone was pleasant. His eyes were ice. "If you'll excuse us, they're about to start the dancing." He steered Liora away before Vivian could respond. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Fine." Another lie. "You're getting good at those. Learned from the best." They reached the dance floor as the orchestra shifted to a waltz. Couples began pairing off. Darian turned to face her, offering his hand. Ready? Liora looked at the crowd gathering to watch. At Vivian, standing at the edge of the floor, arms crossed. At all the people waiting for her to fail. No, she said, but let's do it anyway. Darian pulled her into position. The music started. They moved. It wasn't graceful. Liora was too aware of everyone watching, too conscious of every step. But Darian led firmly, keeping her on beat, and slowly, impossibly, she started to relax. See, he murmured, not dead yet. The night's young. He almost laughed. Then his expression shifted, looking at something over her shoulder. Incoming, my brother. Liora tensed. What? Marcus. He's cutting in. It's traditional. Just don't let him rattle you. Before she could ask what that meant, the music paused. A man who looked like an older, sharper version of Darian appeared beside them. Little brother, he said, mind if I steal your fiancée for a dance? Darian's jaw tightened. Actually, I don't mind, Liora said. She didn't know why, maybe because refusing felt like showing weakness. Darian looked at her. Something flickered in his expression. Then he stepped back. One dance. Marcus took Leora's hand. His grip was firmer than Darian's, possessive. The music started again. They moved into the rhythm. So you're the girl causing all the fuss, Marcus said. His voice was smooth, practiced. I have to say I didn't believe it when I heard. Darian doesn't do relationships. People change. Do they? Marcus spun her expertly. Or do they just pretend to, for the right price? Leora's stomach dropped. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? His smile was cruel. Come on. We both know what this is. My mother's playing games, using you to force Darian into line. The question is, what did she offer you? That's none of your business. Everything about this family is my business. I'm the heir, the responsible one, the one who actually cares about our name. His grip tightened. So when some nobody from the lower city shows up wearing my mother's jewelry and pretending to be part of this family, I pay attention. I'm not pretending anything. Really? Marcus leaned closer. Then tell me, does Darian even like you? Or does he tolerate you because he has no choice? The words stung more than they should have. Liora kept her face blank. Why do you care? Because you're a liability, and liabilities get cut. The music swelled. Marcus spun her again, harder. Enjoy this while it lasts, Miss Vale, because the second my mother's done with you, you'll disappear, and we'll all forget you existed. The song ended. Marcus released her, bowing slightly. Pleasure dancing with you. He walked away. Liora stood frozen on the dance floor, heart hammering. Around her, couples shifted and reformed. Someone brushed past her. She barely noticed. Hey! Darian was back, concern creasing his forehead. What did he say? Nothing. Liora, I need air. She pushed past him, heading for the doors that led to the balcony. Outside, the night air hit her face like cold water. She gripped the stone railing, breathing hard. This was a mistake. All of it. She didn't belong here. Marcus was right. She was a liability, a tool, something to be used and discarded. And when this was over, she'd go back to her real life, and the Thorns would forget she ever existed. Footsteps behind her. You shouldn't be out here alone, she turned. Darian stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. I'm fine. Stop saying that. He moved to the railing beside her. What did Marcus say? The truth. Liora looked out at the city lights. That this is fake. That your mother's using me. That when it's over, I'll be nothing to you people. Darian was quiet for a moment. He's not wrong about my mother. Great. Thanks for the honesty. But he's wrong about the rest. Darian turned to face her. You're not nothing. Liora laughed bitterly. Right. I'm the girl who sold herself for money. You're the girl who saved her family. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. His voice was firm. I've met plenty of people who'd sell out anyone for the right price. You're doing this for your father, your siblings. That's not the same. You're just saying that I don't just say anything. Darian stepped closer. Look, my brother's a bastard, always has been. He sees weakness and exploits it. That's what he does. But you're not weak. You stood up to Vivian. You learned to dance in 10 minutes. You've survived 2 months in a world designed to chew you up. He paused. So don't let Marcus get in your head. Liora stared at him. Why do you care? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it up. Maybe because you're the first person in years who doesn't want something from me. You're here because you have to be. That's refreshing. That's sad. Yeah, it is. He almost smiled. Come back inside. We'll dance one more time. Show Marcus he didn't break you. I don't want to dance. Neither do I. But we're good at doing things we don't want to, remember? He offered his hand. Come on, let's give them a show. Liora looked at his hand, then at his face. Something had shifted between them. She wasn't sure when or how, but it had. She took his hand. They went back inside. The music was still playing. They moved to the center of the floor, and this time Liora didn't think about the steps. She just followed. Darian held her closer than before. You're getting better at this. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not, just observant. They turned. She caught sight of Vivian watching from the edge of the room, face twisted with something ugly. Marcus stood near the bar, glass in hand, looking bored. They hate me, Liora said. They hate everyone. Don't take it personally. Hard not to. I know. Darian's hand tightened at her waist. But you're still here. That means you're stronger than they think. The song ended. Applause rippled through the room. Darian stepped back but kept hold of her hand. Let's get out of here. We can't just leave. Watch me. He led her through the crowd, ignoring the people trying to flag them down. They made it outside, down the steps to the car. Where are we going? Liora asked as they pulled away from the hall. Anywhere but there. Darian loosened his tie. You hungry? What? Food, are you hungry? Liora realized she'd barely eaten all night. Actually, yes. Good. I know a place. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a diner in a part of the city Liora actually recognized. Not fancy, not elegant, just real. Darian got out. Liora stared. You're serious? Come on. He opened her door. Best pie in the city, trust me. They went inside. The woman behind the counter took one look at Darian in his formal wear and Liora in her gown and raised an eyebrow. Little overdressed for Tuesday night. Had a thing, Darian said. 2 slices of apple pie. Coffee. Make that 3 slices, Liora added. And hot chocolate. The woman grinned. Smart girl. They slid into a booth. Leora's dress pooled around her awkwardly. She gathered it up, laughing. I look ridiculous. Little bit. Darian shrugged off his jacket. But you survived. That's what matters. The food came. Liora took a bite and almost moaned. This is incredible. Told you. Darian ate methodically, not looking at her. My mother's going to be furious we left early. Worth it? Absolutely. They ate in silence for a while. Comfortable silence. The kind Liora hadn't expected to share with him. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Depends on the question. Why do you hate all this so much? The parties, the society, all of it. Darian set down his fork. Because it's all performance. Nobody means what they say. Nobody says what they mean. It's just games and manipulation and people using each other. He looked at her. You're honest. Even when you're lying, you're honest about what you're doing. They're not. So you'd rather be alone? Usually, yeah. That sounds lonely. It is. He picked up his coffee. But it's safer. Liora understood that. She'd spent years keeping people at arm's length, afraid that letting anyone close would mean watching them leave. For what it's worth, she said, I don't think you're as terrible as you pretend to be. High praise. I mean it. You could have let me drown tonight. You didn't. Yeah, well, he looked uncomfortable. Don't get used to it. But his tone was softer than his words. They finished eating. Darian paid, didn't even let her reach for her bag. They walked back to the car. Thank you, Liora said, for tonight. For all of it. Don't thank me yet. We've got 4 more months of this. Still, he looked at her. Something passed between them, brief, unspoken. Then he opened the car door. Come on, Let's get you home before your family sends a search party. The drive back was quiet. When they reached her building, Darian walked her to the door again. Big day tomorrow, he said. Mother wants us at brunch. Some council members will be there. Of course she does. I'll pick you up at 10. Darian. Liora stopped him before he could leave. Your brother. What he said about me being a liability, forget it. I can't, because he's right. If someone finds out what this really is, they won't. His voice was firm. We're being careful. And even if they did, I'd handle it. Why? Because that's the deal. But it didn't feel like that was the whole answer. He left before she could push. Liora climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, Tam was still awake, reading by lamplight. You're home late, he said, not looking up from his book. Work thing. Must be some work. He finally looked at her, taking in the gown. What's going on, Leo? Nothing. That's crap and you know it. Tam closed his book. You're gone all the time. You come home wearing expensive clothes. Dad's getting surgery we can't afford, but suddenly we can. You think I'm stupid? I think you're 15, which means I'm not blind. He stood. Whatever this is, just tell me it's not dangerous. Liora wanted to lie, wanted to promise him everything was fine. But looking at her brother, nearly grown, trying so hard to be the man he thought they needed, she couldn't. It's not dangerous, she said carefully. It's just complicated. Complicated how? I can't explain, not yet. But I promise, it's helping us, all of us. Tam searched her face. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded slowly. Okay, but when this blows up, and it will, because complicated always does, you tell me. Deal? Deal. He went to bed. Liora stood alone in the kitchen, still wearing the gown, and wondered if she'd just lied to her brother. The next morning came too fast. Darian picked her up at exactly 10. They drove to his family's estate. Brunch was worse than the gala, smaller, more intimate, which meant less room to hide. Celeste presided over the table like a queen. Marcus sat across from Liora, watching her with that same calculating expression. 3 council members filled out the group, all men, all old, all looking at her like she was an interesting specimen. Miss Vale, one of them said. Celeste tells us you run a business. Floristry, is it? Yes, sir. How enterprising. And your family? They're in trade as well? It was a trap. She could feel it. My father worked the docks before his injury. Ah, manual labor. The man's tone dripped condescension. Nothing wrong with honest work, of course. Of course, Liora echoed, keeping her face neutral. Though it must be quite a change, another council member added. Moving from that world to this, I imagine the adjustment is difficult. Darian's hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. It's different, Liora said carefully, but I'm learning. That's obvious, Marcus said. His smile was poison. The question is whether you can learn fast enough. Celeste's fork clinked against her plate. Marcus, enough. I'm simply being realistic, Mother. The council has concerns about stability, about appearances, about things that are none of your concern. Celeste's voice could have cut stone. Darian's engagement is a family matter, not a council one. Everything about this family is a council matter, one of the men said, particularly when it involves the Thorn name. My son's personal life reflects on all of us. The man leaned forward. We've overlooked his eccentricities thus far, but this relationship raises questions about judgment, about commitment. Liora felt Darian tense beside her. My commitment isn't in question, Darian said, voice tight. Isn't it? Marcus leaned back in his chair. You've refused every suitable match. You avoid family obligations. You spend more time with books than people. And now you're engaged to a girl nobody's ever heard of. He looked at Liora. No offense. Plenty taken, Liora shot back. Marcus's smile widened. Spirit, how refreshing. But spirit doesn't erase the fact that this engagement is unusual. Suspicious, even. Suspicious how? Darian's voice was dangerous now. Well, the timing is convenient. Mother's been pressuring you for months. You resist. Then suddenly, Marcus gestured at Liora. A fiancé appears. From nowhere. No courtship that anyone witnessed. No history together. Just boom. Engaged. The silence that followed was suffocating. Leora's heart hammered. This was it. Marcus had figured it out, or guessed, and now he was going to blow everything apart. Are you suggesting something? Celeste asked, voice like ice. I'm simply observing that this relationship appeared very conveniently. Marcus's eyes never left Liora. And I'm wondering what everyone else at this table is too polite to ask. Is this real, or is it a performance? Liora couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room felt like it was closing in. Then Darian stood. Excuse us, he said, pulling Liora to her feet. We need to talk, privately. He didn't wait for permission, just led her out of the dining room, down the hall, into an empty study. The door closed. Liora spun to face him. He knows. He suspects, Darian corrected. That's different. Not by much. Leora's hands were shaking. What do we do? Darian paced, running his hands through his hair. I don't know. If Marcus starts digging, if he finds the contract or figures out the payment schedule, we're done. Yeah. Leora's mind raced. They'd been careful, but not careful enough. And now Marcus had his teeth in this, and he wouldn't let go until he'd torn it apart. There's one way to stop him, she said slowly. Darian stopped pacing. What? We make it real. Darian stared at her like she'd lost her mind. What did you just say? Make it real. Leora's heart was racing, but her voice stayed steady. Get married. Actually married. Then Marcus can dig all he wants. There's nothing to find. That's insane. It's the only option. She stepped closer. Think about it. He's looking for proof this is fake. But if we're legally married, what can he say? That we moved fast? Plenty of people do. That it's unconventional? So what? Darian shook his head. You're talking about marriage, actual marriage. A real marriage on paper, not, she gestured vaguely. We'd still end it after 6 months, like we planned. But legally, it stops Marcus cold and creates a dozen other problems. Darian moved to the window, staring out. Divorce isn't simple in our circles. It's public, messy. It would follow both of us. So would exposure. Liora crossed her arms. If Marcus proves this is fake, your mother looks like a manipulator. You look like a liar. I look like a con artist. My family loses everything. Your reputation? My reputation's already garbage. Not like this. Not scandal level. She waited until he turned to face her. We both know what happens if this blows up. This way, we control it. Darian's jaw worked. You're serious. Completely. This is... You understand what you're suggesting. You'd be tied to me, to this family. Even after it ends, you'd always be Darian Thorne's ex-wife. That label doesn't wash off. Neither does the girl who conned the Thornes. Liora held his gaze. I'm already all in. This just makes it official. He looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, calculation giving way to something else. Respect, maybe. Or resignation. You're either very brave or very stupid, he said finally. Can it be both? Despite everything, he almost smiled. Then it faded. My mother will never agree to this. Your mother wants Marcus off your back. This does that. Liora straightened her shoulders. And if she says no, we tell her Marcus is already suspicious, that this is damage control. You've thought this through. I've had about 3 minutes, so not really, but I'm good at making terrible decisions quickly. Darian laughed, short, sharp, humorless. Yeah, I'm noticing that. He scrubbed his face with his hands. Okay, let's say we do this. How fast are we talking? This week. No, that's impossible. It has to be fast, before Marcus starts digging. Before anyone else gets suspicious. Leora's mind was racing now, fitting pieces together. Small ceremony, family only. We tell everyone we didn't want to wait, that we're in love and impulsive, and nobody will believe that. They don't have to believe it. They just have to accept it. She moved closer. Darian, this works. I know it's crazy, but it works. He stared at her. She could see him working through it, weighing options, calculating risks. His mind moved like hers did, fast, practical, focused on survival. "If we do this," he said slowly, "there's no going back. You understand that?" "I understand." "And you're okay with it? Marrying someone you barely know, someone you don't even like?" "I don't not like you." The words came out before she could stop them. "And yeah, it's insane. But so is everything else about this situation." Darian was quiet. Then, "We tell my mother together." "Now?" "Now." They found Celeste in her office, reviewing documents. She looked up as they entered, eyebrow raised. "That was a short conversation." "We need to talk," Darian said. Something in his tone made Celeste set down her pen. "About?" "Marriage," Liora said. "Real marriage, this week." Celeste went very still. "Explain." They did. Laid out Marcus's suspicions, the risk of exposure, the solution. Celeste listened without interrupting, face unreadable. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You want to actually marry each other." "We want to stop Marcus before he destroys everything," Darian corrected. "This does that. It also complicates the eventual separation." "Divorce is cleaner than fraud charges," Liora said bluntly. Celeste's eyes narrowed. "You're very certain of yourself, Miss Vale." "I'm certain I don't want to lose everything because your oldest son has a grudge." "Marcus doesn't have a grudge. He has standards. He has a vendetta," Darian cut in, "against me. And he'll use Liora to get to me. You know that." Celeste was silent. Liora watched her face, trying to read the calculation happening behind those cold eyes. "If you do this," Celeste said finally, "it's permanent, on record. You'd be family." "On paper," Liora clarified. "Paper matters in this world." Celeste stood, moving to the window. "But you're right about one thing. Marcus won't stop digging until he finds something. And if he finds the contract—" She turned back. "How fast can you arrange this?" 3 days, Darian said. Celeste's eyebrow rose. "Ambitious. Necessary." "The council will have questions." "Let them ask. We're adults. We can marry who we want, when we want." "In theory." Celeste studied them both. "You'll need a story, something believable." "We're in love," Liora said. "Couldn't wait. That's the story." "Nobody will buy that. They'll buy it more than they'll buy a fake engagement that turns into a real marriage later. This way it's passionate, impulsive." Liora shrugged. "People expect that from lower-class girls who don't know better." Celeste almost smiled. "You're learning." She moved back to her desk, pulling out a notepad. "Fine, I'll make the arrangements. You two will need to sell this. Convincingly." "We will," Darian said. "See that you do." Celeste's gaze sharpened. "Because if this falls apart, if Marcus proves manipulation, the scandal will destroy all of us, including your family, Miss Vale." "I understand." "Good." Celeste made a note. "Now get out. I have calls to make." They left. The hallway felt too quiet. "Did that just happen?" Liora asked. "I think so." Darian looked shell-shocked. "We're getting married in 3 days." "Apparently. This is insane. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Are you sure about this?" Liora wasn't sure about anything, but backing out now meant losing everything. The money, the surgery, her family's safety. And something else. Something she didn't want to examine too closely. The strange partnership she and Darian had built over the past months. "I'm sure," she said. He searched her face. Whatever he saw made him nod. "Okay, then let's do this." The next 3 days were a blur. Celeste moved like a general coordinating a campaign. Marriage license expedited through connections Liora didn't want to know about. A private ceremony arranged at the estate. Minimal guests, just immediate family and 2 council members as witnesses. "To make it official," Celeste explained, "so Marcus can't claim it's fake." Liora barely had time to breathe. Between dress fittings and paperwork and Madame Colette's crash course in how to be a proper wife, which Liora mostly ignored, she hadn't seen her own family in days. She called Tam from the estate on the second night. "I need to tell you something." "You're getting married." His voice was flat. Leora's stomach dropped. How did you... I'm not stupid, Leo. You've been gone for 3 days. There's a marriage license application with your name on it. Public record, by the way. And Dad keeps getting calls from some fancy medical office about Mrs. Thorne's father. Silence. So yeah, I figured it out. Liora closed her eyes. Tam, who is he? It's complicated. That's what you keep saying, but it's not complicated. You're marrying some rich guy I've never met to pay for Dad's surgery. That's pretty simple. It's not like that. Then what's it like? His voice cracked. Because from here, it looks like you sold yourself. The words hit like a punch. I'm doing what I have to do. For all of us. We didn't ask you to. You didn't have to. Leora's throat tightened. Tam, I know this looks bad, but I promise you, I'm okay. This is my choice. Is it? Because it sounds like you're trapped. I'm not. She wasn't sure if that was true, but she said it anyway. Just trust me. Please. He was quiet for so long she thought he'd hung up. Then, fine, but when this goes wrong, and it will, I'm saying I told you so. Fair enough. And I want to meet him before the wedding. Tam, those are my terms. You want me to keep this from Dad and Marin? I meet your husband first. Liora sighed. Okay, tomorrow. I'll bring him by. She hung up and immediately regretted it. Bringing Darian to meet her family felt like worlds colliding in the worst way, but she'd promised. The next morning, she found Darian in the library. He looked up from his book, always reading, and frowned. You look stressed. My brother wants to meet you. What? He figured out we're getting married, wants to meet you before the wedding. Liora dropped into a chair. I tried to say no, but he's 15 and stubborn. Runs in the family. Darian closed his book. When? Today. Now, actually. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? He studied her face. No, you look terrified. I'm not. She stopped. Okay, maybe a little. Tam's protective and suspicious. And he's going to ask questions I can't answer. So we don't answer them. Darian stood. Come on, let's go meet your brother. The drive to Leora's neighborhood was tense. Darian stared out the window as the buildings got smaller, the streets narrower, the air thicker with smoke and grime. This is where you grew up? He asked. Yeah. It's... He trailed off. Poor? Liora supplied. Rough? Not like your world? Different, he finished. I was going to say different. They parked. Liora led him up the narrow stairs to her family's apartment. The door was unlocked. It always was during the day. Inside, Tam sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed. He looked up as they entered, eyes immediately finding Darian. So you're him, Tam said. I'm him. Darian didn't flinch under the stare. You must be Tam. And you must be rich. Liora winced. Tam, what? It's obvious. Tam stood. He was tall for 15, almost Darian's height. Nice clothes. Nice car outside. You look like money. That's not really... Darian stopped. Yeah, okay. Fair assessment. Tam's eyebrow rose. At least you're honest. I try to be. They sized each other up. Liora held her breath. Why are you marrying my sister? Tam asked bluntly. Darian didn't hesitate. Because she's the only person I've met in years who doesn't want anything from me except honesty. That's crap. She wants your money. She wants to save your father. That's different. Is it? Yes. Darian's voice was firm. She's not doing this for herself. She's doing it for you, all of you, and that makes her better than most people I know. Tam's expression flickered. You really believe that? I do. Silence. Then Tam moved to the counter, grabbed 2 glasses, filled them with water, handed one to Darian. You hurt her, Tam said quietly. I don't care how much money you have, I'll make your life hell. Darian took the glass. Noted. Good. Tam looked at Liora. He's not what I expected. Is that a good thing? Don't know yet. But Tam's shoulders had relaxed slightly. Dad's sleeping, Marin's at school. You should probably leave before they wake up and ask questions. Liora nodded. We'll go. Outside, Darian was quiet until they reached the car. Your brother's intense. He's protective. I noticed. Darian opened her door. He loves you a lot. Yeah. Leora's chest tightened. He does. Lucky. She looked at him. There was something in his expression. Loneliness, maybe, or longing for something he'd never had. You have family, she said. I have people who share my last name. That's not the same thing. He closed her door, walked around to his side. Once inside, he added, Your brother actually cares whether I hurt you. My brother's counting on it. Liora didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. The wedding was scheduled for sunset, small, private. Nothing like the elaborate ceremonies society expected. Celeste had arranged everything in the estate's garden. White chairs for the handful of guests. Flowers, roses, and lilies arranged by someone who actually knew what they were doing. A simple arch. Liora stood in a guest room, staring at the dress Celeste had provided. Ivory silk. Simpler than the gala gown, but beautiful. Elegant. A wedding dress for a wedding that wasn't real. Except it was real. That was the point. You're thinking too much, Caroline said from the doorway. She'd shown up an hour ago with champagne and moral support. I can hear it from here. I'm getting married. Usually that's the point of the wedding dress. Caroline moved into the room, glass in hand. Having second thoughts? About 100. Normal. Caroline took a sip. I had 1,000 before mine, still went through with it. Are you happy? Liora asked. Caroline considered. Happy enough. Marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's a partnership. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You make the best of what you've got. That's not exactly inspiring. No, but it's honest. Caroline set down her glass. Look, I don't know what's really going on with you and Darian. Don't care, honestly. But I've watched you two together, and I've seen the way he looks at you. Leora's pulse jumped. What do you mean? Like you're real. Like you matter. Caroline shrugged. That's rare in this world. Don't underestimate it. Before Liora could respond, Madame Colette swept in. Time to get dressed. We're on schedule. The next 20 minutes were a blur of fabric and hairpins and makeup. When it was done, Liora barely recognized herself in the mirror. You'll do, Madame Colette said, which was probably the highest compliment she'd ever given. Caroline squeezed Leora's hand. Ready? No, not even close. But Liora nodded anyway. The garden was golden in the sunset light. The small group of guests turned as she appeared. Celeste, expression unreadable. Marcus, watching with cold calculation. The two council members, looking bored. And Darian, standing at the arch. He'd cleaned up. Dark suit, hair actually combed. He looked nervous. She'd never seen him nervous before. Liora walked toward him, each step feeling surreal. This was happening, actually happening. She reached the arch. Darian's eyes met hers. Hi, he said quietly. Hi. You look... He stopped. You look nice. You too. The officiant, some friend of Celeste's, cleared his throat. Shall we begin? The ceremony was short, standard vows. The whole time, Liora felt like she was watching herself from outside her body. This couldn't be real, but Darian's hand holding hers was warm, solid, real. Do you, Darian Thorne, take this woman? I do. And do you, Liora Vale, take this man? Leora's throat was dry. She looked at Darian, saw her own uncertainty reflected back. I do, she heard herself say. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Darian hesitated. They hadn't discussed this part. Just make it quick, Liora whispered. He leaned in. His lips brushed hers. Brief, chaste, nothing like a real kiss. But electricity shot through her anyway. They pulled apart. The small group applauded politely. Congratulations, Celeste said, stepping forward. Mrs. Thorne. The name hit Liora like cold water. Mrs. Thorne. That was her now. The reception was equally small. Dinner in the estate's dining room, champagne toast that felt forced. Marcus gave a speech that was all sharp edges disguised as warmth. To my brother and his new bride, may they find exactly what they're looking for. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Darian's hand tightened on his glass. After dinner, Celeste pulled Liora aside. You did well today. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Celeste's expression was serious. This was the easy part. Now comes the hard part, making everyone believe it. We will. See that you do, because Marcus is still watching, and one slip could ruin everything. She walked away. Liora stood alone, the weight of the ring on her finger suddenly feeling very heavy. Want to get out of here? She turned. Darian stood behind her, jacket off, tie loosened. Where would we go? I don't know, anywhere. He glanced at the dining room where guests were still mingling. We're supposed to stay in the estate tonight, appearances, but we could take a walk first. Liora nodded. They slipped out through the garden doors. The grounds were quiet, peaceful. They walked without speaking, just moving through the darkness. That was surreal, Darian said finally. Yeah. I'm married. So am I. To you. To you. He laughed, short and slightly hysterical. This is insane. You've said that before. Bears repeating. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Are you okay? I don't know. Liora wrapped her arms around herself. Are you? Also don't know. They stood there, two people who'd just legally bound themselves together for reasons that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with survival. We should go back, Liora said. Before someone notices, the sound of breaking glass cut through the air. They both froze. What was that? Liora whispered. Darian's face had gone hard. Stay here. Like hell. He was already moving, heading back toward the house. Liora followed, heart hammering. They rounded the corner. The study window was shattered. Glass littered the ground. And inside, illuminated by lamplight, Marcus stood at Celeste's desk. Papers scattered everywhere. His hands were on the contract, the original contract, the one that outlined the fake engagement arrangement. Marcus looked up, saw them, smiled. Well, he said, holding up the document. This is interesting. Liora's blood turned to ice. The contract. The one piece of evidence that could destroy everything, and Marcus was holding it like a trophy. Put that down, Darian said, voice deadly calm. Marcus's smile widened. Why would I do that? This is fascinating reading. 6 months. Monthly stipend. Termination clause. He looked up. Congratulations on your wedding, by the way. Though I suppose fraud is the more accurate term. Liora's mind raced. They were caught. Completely, utterly caught. Everything they'd done, the marriage, the risks, all of it, was about to collapse. Then Darian laughed. The sound was so unexpected that even Marcus faltered. What's funny? Marcus demanded. You are. Darian stepped through the broken window, glass crunching under his shoes. Breaking into Mother's office, stealing documents, all to prove what exactly? That your marriage is a sham, that you and this girl conspired to To what? Get engaged? Darian plucked the contract from Marcus's hands before his brother could react. This is an engagement contract, Marcus. Not a marriage contract. See the dates? 3 months ago, before we decided to actually get married. Marcus's expression flickered. That's completely legal. Wealthy families arrange engagements all the time. Written agreements about expectations, duration, compensation if things don't work out. Darian's voice was smooth, confident. We were going to end the engagement after 6 months. Then we fell in love, changed our minds, got married instead. Nobody's going to believe that. Why not? Liora stepped through the window, ignoring the glass. Her heart was hammering, but she kept her voice steady. People change their minds. Feelings develop. It happens. Not to him. Marcus pointed at Darian. He doesn't fall in love. He doesn't feel anything. You don't know me as well as you think you do, Darian said quietly. I know you're a liar, both of you. Marcus's face was flushed now, anger cracking through his controlled facade. This whole thing is a performance, an arrangement, and I'm going to prove it. With what? Darian held up the contract. This? All this proves is that we had an engagement agreement, perfectly normal in our circles. If you take this public, you'll look paranoid, desperate. The council doesn't care about private family contracts. They care about stability, appearances. And right now, I'm married, Settled. Exactly what they wanted. Darian's smile was cold. You've got nothing, Marcus, except breaking and entering charges if Mother decides to press them. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing for the contract. Darian sidestepped smoothly. They faced each other, years of sibling rivalry crystallizing into something uglier. You always do this, Marcus hissed. Twist things. Make yourself look reasonable while everyone else looks crazy. I'm not the one who broke a window. You're going to regret this. Probably, but not because of you. Marcus's jaw clenched. He looked at Liora. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. This family will eat you alive. They can try, Liora said. He brushed past them, storming out. They heard his footsteps echoing down the hall, then a door slamming. Silence. Leora's legs felt weak. She sagged against the desk. Did that just work? I think so. Darian stared at the contract in his hands. Though he's right about one thing. He's going to keep digging. Let him dig. We're actually married now. There's nothing to find. Except this. Darian held up the contract. We need to destroy it. Your mother, will understand. He moved to the fireplace, struck a match. The paper caught, flames consuming the evidence. They watched it burn. That was smart, Liora said. What you said about engagement contracts. It was true. Sort of. Families do make arrangements. We just made ours more explicit. He prodded the ashes with the poker, making sure nothing remained. Marcus will still be suspicious. But he can't prove anything. No. Darian set down the poker, which means he'll try something else. Like what? I don't know. But Marcus doesn't lose gracefully. He turned to face her. You should probably move in here, tomorrow. It'll look strange if we're married, but living separately. Reality hit Liora like a wave. Move in, live here, share a life with someone who was still basically a stranger. Right, she managed. That makes sense. You can have your own room. We'll tell everyone we're being traditional, separate quarters until we're ready for... He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Yeah, good plan. They stood there awkwardly, the weight of what they'd just done settling over them. I should go tell Mother about the contract, Darian said finally. She'll want to know Marcus broke in. Do you think she'll press charges? No, family politics, but she'll use it as leverage. He headed for the door, then stopped. Liora? Yeah? You were good tonight. Quick thinking, not panicking. I panicked plenty, just didn't show it. Even better. He almost smiled. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be exhausting. He left. Liora stood alone in the study, surrounded by broken glass and burnt paper. She'd just watched her last escape route go up in flames. There was no contract anymore, no proof the arrangement had ever been fake, which meant there was no way to prove it had been real either. They were married. Actually, legally, irreversibly married. And somehow, that felt less terrifying than it should have. The next morning, Liora packed her life into 3 suitcases. Everything she owned fit easily. Clothes, a few books, the photograph of her mother that usually sat beside her bed. Tam helped her carry them downstairs. You don't have to do this, you know. Yeah, I do. No, you don't. You could walk away. We'd figure something out. Liora looked at her brother. Dad's surgery's next week. We're eating 3 meals a day. Marin has new shoes. You're going back to school in the fall. She touched his face. I'm not walking away from that. Even if it costs you everything, it's not costing me everything. It's giving us everything. He pulled her into a fierce hug. I still think you're crazy. Definitely. She held him tight. But I'm your crazy sister. That counts for something. The car Celeste sent arrived at noon. Liora hugged Tam one more time, then climbed in. Thorne Estate looked different in daylight. Less imposing somehow. Just a very large house where very complicated people lived. Darian met her at the entrance. You actually came. Where else would I go? Fair point. He grabbed 2 of her suitcases. Come on, I'll show you to your room. He led her up a massive staircase, down a hall lined with portraits of stern-looking Thorns. That's my grandfather. That's my great-aunt. That one's nobody. Mother just liked the frame. Despite everything, Liora smiled. Her room was larger than her entire apartment back home. Windows overlooking the garden. A bed big enough for 4 people. Furniture that probably cost more than her shop. It's a lot, Darian said, watching her face. It's terrifying. You'll get used to it. He set down the suitcases. My room's next door. There's a connecting door, but it locks from both sides. Your privacy's your own. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Mother's planning a reception. Proper one. 2 weeks. Every important family in the city invited to celebrate our marriage. Leora's stomach dropped. Of course she is. We can handle it. He moved toward the door. I'll let you get settled. Dinner's at 7. Formal. Because apparently we can't just eat like normal people. He left. Liora sank onto the bed, feeling the expensive mattress give beneath her. This was her life now, at least for the next 5 months. She started unpacking. The first week was brutal. Liora had thought living in the estate would mean privacy, but she was wrong. Servants everywhere, always watching. Celeste appearing at random times with notes about etiquette or social obligations. Marcus avoiding them but radiating hostility whenever they crossed paths. And Darian, who seemed just as uncomfortable with the arrangement as she was. They developed a routine. Breakfast together, required by Celeste. Then Darian disappeared into the library while Liora tried to figure out what to do with herself. Dinners were formal, painful affairs where they made small talk while Celeste evaluated their performance. At night, Liora lay in her too large bed and listened to the sounds of a house that would never feel like home. The reception planning consumed Celeste's attention. She called Liora to her office daily to review guest lists, menu options, decorations. This is your introduction to society as a thorn, Celeste said. Everything must be perfect. No pressure. Considerable pressure, actually. Celeste slid a list across the desk. These are the people who matter. Learn their names, their positions, their allegiances. Liora scanned the list, dozens of names, each with notes about their importance or potential threat level. This is insane. This is survival. Celeste's expression was hard. Marcus is still spreading rumors, quietly but persistently. That your marriage is convenient, that you're unsuitable, that Darian's being manipulated. By me or by you? Both. Celeste leaned back. He's trying to turn the council against us, make them question Darian's judgment, undermine our family's stability. What can we do about it? Win. Celeste's eyes glinted. This reception is a battlefield. You and Darian need to look united, in love, unshakable. Make them believe this marriage is real. It is real. Legally, but that's not what I mean. Celeste stood. Make them believe it emotionally. That's what matters. After the meeting, Liora found Darian in the library. He looked up from his book as she entered. Mother's in rare form today? Something like that. Liora collapsed into a chair. She wants us to convince everyone we're madly in love. Of course she does. Can we do that? Darian closed his book. I don't know, can we? I'm asking you. And I'm asking you. He set the book aside. Look, we've gotten good at pretending in public, but madly in love is different than politely engaged. That requires more. More what? Intimacy. Not physical. He held up a hand. Just closeness. Like we actually know each other, care about each other. We do know each other. Do we? Darian's gaze was searching. I know you're stubborn, smart, that you're doing this for your family. But I don't know your favorite color, or what you do when you can't sleep, or what made you decide to become a florist. Liora blinked. Purple. I read. And my mother loved flowers. She died before she could teach me properly, so I learned from books. Darian's expression softened. See? I didn't know any of that. What about you? Dark green. I walk. And I started reading because it was the only way to disappear when my family got too loud. They looked at each other. It felt strange, sharing these small truths, like opening doors they'd both kept locked. We should do this more, Liora said. What, trade facts? Talk, actually talk. If we're going to convince everyone we're in love, we should probably act like we know each other. Makes sense, Darian stood. Come on. Where? Walk with me. They spent the next hour wandering the estate grounds, trading stories. Small things, childhood memories, embarrassing moments, pet peeves, nothing earth-shattering. But slowly, the stranger she'd married started to become a person, someone she actually liked. It became a habit. Every evening after dinner, they'd walk. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't, but the silence stopped feeling awkward. And when Liora caught herself looking forward to those walks, she pushed the feeling down. This was temporary, a means to an end, nothing more. The reception arrived faster than Liora wanted. She stood in front of the mirror wearing a gown that cost more than 6 months of her old life. Deep blue silk, hair swept up, jewelry that felt like chains. Caroline appeared in the doorway. "You look terrified." "I am terrified." "Good. Use it." Caroline crossed the room. "Fear makes you sharp. And you'll need sharp tonight. Every person downstairs is going to evaluate you, judge you, try to find weaknesses. Not helping. Not trying to." Caroline adjusted Liora's necklace. "I'm trying to prepare you. These people are sharks. But here's the thing about sharks. They respect strength, so be strong." "I don't feel strong." "Fake it. You're good at that." A knock at the door. Darian entered, stopped. "You look terrified?" "Beautiful." He said it simply, like stating a fact. "I was going to say beautiful." Something warm flickered in Liora's chest. She ignored it. "You clean up nice, too." "Liar. I look uncomfortable." "That, too." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Me neither. Let's go." They descended the stairs together. The entrance hall below was packed. Hundreds of guests in formal wear, champagne glasses glittering, conversation buzzing like angry bees. Everyone turned to look. Liora felt their eyes like physical weight, judging, measuring, finding her lacking. Then Darian's hand covered hers where it rested on his arm. Squeezed once. She squeezed back. They reached the bottom of the stairs. Celeste materialized, resplendent in silver. The happy couple, right on time. "We do try," Darian said dryly. "Try harder." But Celeste's expression held something like approval. "Mingle. Be charming. Make them love you." She glided away. Darian steered Liora into the crowd. The next hour was a blur of introductions. Names and faces blurred together. Everyone wanted to meet the new Mrs. Thorne. Everyone had opinions disguised as compliments. "How lovely that you've found each other. Such an unexpected match. We're all so curious about your background, dear." Liora smiled until her face ached. Answered questions with practiced vagueness. Let Darian deflect the sharper inquiries. They were good together, she realized. A team. He'd start a sentence, she'd finish it. She'd stumble, he'd catch her. Back and forth, seamless. Almost like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. Then Vivian appeared, wearing crimson and a smile that promised blood. "The newlyweds! How sweet!" She air-kissed near Liora's cheeks. "You both look radiant. Marriage clearly agrees with you." "It does," Darian said evenly. "I have to ask." Vivian's voice dropped conspiratorially. "Was it very sudden? The wedding, I mean. We were all so surprised." "When you know, Liora said. "How romantic." Vivian's eyes were cold. "Though I have to wonder, what do you two actually have in common? You're from such different worlds." "We have each other," Darian said. "That's enough." "Is it?" Vivian tilted her head. "Because from the outside it looks like a very convenient arrangement. For both of you." The accusation hung in the air. Liora felt Darian tense beside her. This was it. The moment where they either sold the illusion or lost everything. She turned to Darian, looked up at him, let everything she'd been holding back show on her face. The fear, the uncertainty, the strange affection that had grown despite her best efforts. "Nothing about this has been convenient," she said softly, speaking to him but loud enough for Vivian to hear. "It's been terrifying, overwhelming. I've questioned it 100 times. She touched his face. "But when I'm with you, it makes sense. You make sense. And that's worth every terrifying moment." Darian stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. He leaned down and kissed her. Not like at the wedding. Not brief and chaste and meaningless. This kiss was real. His hand cupped her face, his mouth warm against hers, and Liora forgot where they were. Forgot Vivian watching. Forgot the performance. She kissed him back. When they pulled apart, Vivian's smile had frozen. Well, that's definitive. Glad we cleared that up, Darian said, not looking away from Liora. Vivian made an excuse and disappeared into the crowd. Leora's heart was racing. That was necessary, Darian finished, but his voice was rough. Right, necessary. They stood there, the air between them charged with something neither wanted to name. We should keep mingling, Liora said. Yeah, we should. Neither moved. Then Marcus's voice cut through the moment. Attention, everyone! The crowd quieted. Marcus stood on the stairs, champagne glass raised. His smile was poisonous. A toast, he announced, to my dear brother and his beautiful bride. May their marriage be everything they deserve. The words were right. The tone was wrong. Darian's jaw tightened. What are you doing? Celebrating. Marcus descended the stairs. I've been thinking about what you said, about engagement contracts, about how common they are in our world. And you're right, they are common. My mistake was thinking yours was unusual. He reached them, still smiling. So I've decided to support this marriage. Wholeheartedly. You're lying, Liora said flatly. Am I? Marcus looked wounded. I'm simply accepting reality. You're married, part of the family, which means you're entitled to all the privileges and responsibilities that come with being a thorn. What's that supposed to mean? Darian demanded. It means she should have a role, a purpose. Marcus turned to address the crowd. I've spoken with the council. We've agreed. Mrs. Thorne should join the board of our family's charitable foundation. Help guide our philanthropic efforts. It's the perfect way for her to contribute. Murmurs of approval rippled through the guests. Celeste appeared, face unreadable. That's a wonderful idea, someone called out. She should absolutely be involved. See? Marcus spread his hands. Everyone agrees. Welcome to the family, Liora. Truly. He walked away. The crowd closed around them, people offering congratulations, talking about the foundation, asking when Liora would start. Darian pulled her aside. This is a trap. Obviously, but what kind? The board has access to all the family's financial records, business dealings, contracts. His face was grim. If there's any evidence of our original arrangement, bank transfers, payment schedules, anything, Marcus is betting you'll find it, or that looking for it will expose you. So I refuse the position. And look like you're hiding something, or ungrateful, or not really committed to being part of this family. Darian's hand clenched. He's boxed us in. Leora's mind raced. Marcus had just forced her into a position where she'd either uncover evidence against herself or appear suspicious by refusing. Either way, he won, unless she changed the game. I'll do it, she said. What? I'll join the board. I'll dig through every record, find everything. She met Darian's eyes. And if I find proof of our arrangement, I'll bury it so deep nobody will ever find it again. And then I'll use that position to actually do some good. Help people who need it, people like my family. That's risky? Stupid? Liora smiled. Or exactly what your brother isn't expecting. Darian stared at her. Then slowly he started to smile. You're going to take his trap and turn it into a weapon. That's the plan. That's insane. You keep saying that. I keep doing it anyway. He laughed. Real laughter, the kind she'd rarely heard from him. Yeah, you do. He pulled her closer. Okay, let's do this. Together. Together. They turned back to the crowd. Marcus watched from across the room, confident in his victory. He had no idea what was coming. The party continued, but something had shifted. Liora felt it in the way people looked at her now, not just as Darian's wife, but as someone with power. Someone who mattered. Later, after the guests left and the house quieted, Liora stood on the balcony outside her room. The night air was cool. Below, the ground stretched into darkness. Footsteps behind her. She didn't turn. Can't sleep? Darian asked. Too much champagne, too many people, too much everything. He moved beside her, leaning against the railing. You were incredible tonight. I was terrified tonight. Both can be true. He was quiet for a moment. That thing you said to Vivian, about questioning this, but it making sense when you're with me. Did you mean that? Leora's breath caught. She should lie, should keep the walls up, should remember this was temporary, but she was tired of lying. Yeah, she said quietly. I meant it. Darian turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. I'm not good at this. At people. At feelings. My whole life I've kept everyone at a distance because it was easier, safer. I know the feeling. But you... He stopped, started again. You broke through that somehow, and I don't know what to do about it. Leora's heart hammered. What do you want to do about it? I want to stop pretending. He moved closer. I want this to be real. The words hung between them, dangerous, terrifying, true. It is real, Leora whispered. The marriage certificate is real. The ring is real. We're really married. That's not what I mean. I know. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Their fingers intertwined, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. 5 more months, Darian said. That was the deal. Then we end this. Yeah. What if we didn't? Liora looked up at him. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we stop counting down. Maybe we start building something real instead of planning an exit strategy. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Maybe we actually try. Everything Liora had been fighting against, every wall she'd built, every reminder that this was temporary, it all crumbled. That's terrifying, she said. I know. We could destroy each other. Probably. This could end horribly. Most things do. He smiled slightly. But maybe not this. Maybe this is different. Liora thought about her family, about survival, about the girl she'd been 3 months ago, desperate and alone, who would have done anything to save the people she loved. She was still that girl. But she was also someone else now. Someone who'd survived in a world designed to crush her. Someone who'd turned Marcus's trap into an opportunity. Someone who'd found partnership in the last place she'd expected. Okay, she said. Okay? Let's try. Actually try. She squeezed his hand. But if you break my heart, I'm taking half of everything in the divorce. He laughed. Fair. Then he kissed her again. Slower this time, deeper. Like they had all the time in the world instead of 5 months counting down to nothing. When they pulled apart, Liora felt different, lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight she hadn't realized was there. We should probably tell your mother, she said, that we're not planning to end this. She'll be insufferable about it. She's already insufferable. Good point. Darian pulled her closer. Tomorrow. We'll tell her tomorrow. And Marcus? Marcus will figure it out eventually. When we're still married a year from now, 5 years from now. His expression hardened slightly. And there's nothing he can do about it. Liora looked out at the estate grounds. This strange, overwhelming world that had terrified her. It still did. But now it felt like something else too. Like home, like possibility, like the future she hadn't dared to imagine. Behind them, through the open door, the clock chimed midnight. A new day. A new start. Liora smiled. Morning came too fast. Liora woke to sunlight streaming through windows she was finally getting used to. For a moment she lay there, thinking about the night before, about Darian's words, about the decision they'd made. Then reality crashed back. Today she started on the foundation board. Today she walked into Marcus's trap and turned it inside out. She got up. Breakfast was quieter than usual. Celeste reviewed correspondence while Darian read the financial section of the paper. Marcus was conspicuously absent. He's avoiding us, Darian said without looking up. Smart of him. Celeste set down her coffee. Liora, your first board meeting is this afternoon, 3 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't. And don't let Marcus rattle you. He'll try. Celeste's gaze sharpened. He's convinced he's cornered you. Prove him wrong. After breakfast, Liora found herself in the estate's business wing, a section she'd avoided until now. Offices and filing rooms and enough paperwork to drown in. A woman in her 40s met her at the door. Mrs. Thorne? I'm Helen Chen, Foundation Director. I'll be helping you get oriented. Thank you. Helen led her through a maze of rooms. The Foundation handles all Thorne family charitable giving. We fund education programs, medical research, community development in the lower districts. Last year, we distributed over 40 million. Leora's head spun. 40 million? Give or take. Helen pulled out files. These are our current initiatives. You'll need to familiarize yourself with each one before the meeting. The next 4 hours were brutal. Liora read until her eyes burned, taking notes, asking questions. Helen was patient, explaining the foundation structure, its goals, its complicated relationship with the family's business interests. The board has 5 members, Helen explained. Mrs. Thorne chairs it. Marcus handles financial oversight. 2 council members provide independent governance. And now you. What's my role supposed to be? Whatever you make it. Helen's expression was carefully neutral. Marcus suggested you focus on community outreach, given your background. Translation, keep the lower-class girl away from anything important. What if I want to do more than that? Helen almost smiled. Then you'll need to prove you can handle it. The board meeting was held in a conference room that screamed power. Dark wood, leather chairs, windows overlooking the city. Celeste sat at the head of the table. Marcus to her right. The 2 council members, both men in their 60s, flanked them. Liora took the empty chair at the far end. Let's begin, Celeste said. First order of business, welcoming our newest board member. Liora will be focusing on community initiatives. Actually, Liora said, I'd like to propose something different. The room went quiet. Marcus's eyebrow rose. I've spent the morning reviewing our current programs, Liora continued. They're good, well-funded, but they're missing something. And what's that? One of the council members asked. Direct impact. We're funding research and infrastructure, which is important, but there's no program that actually puts money in people's hands. No emergency relief for families in crisis. Marcus leaned back. We're a foundation, not a charity. We don't hand out cash. Why not? Liora met his gaze. You have 40 million to distribute. What if some of that went directly to families who need it? Medical emergencies, sudden job loss, people who are one disaster away from losing everything. That's inefficient, Marcus said. No accountability, no way to measure impact. There's plenty of accountability if we structure it right. Applications, verification, follow-up. Liora pulled out the proposal she'd drafted during lunch. I've outlined a pilot program, $500,000 to start, help 50 families, track outcomes. If it works, we expand. Celeste took the proposal, scanning it. Her expression gave nothing away. This is quite detailed, one of the council members said. You put this together today? Yes. Impressive initiative. He looked at Marcus. I think it deserves consideration. Marcus's smile was tight. Of course, though I'd want to see more financial analysis, cost-benefit projections, risk assessment. I can provide that, Liora said. Can you? Marcus's tone suggested he doubted it. These things require expertise, understanding of financial systems. No offense, but you've been on this board for exactly 4 hours. And I've spent my entire life watching families like mine fall through the cracks of systems designed by people like you. Liora's voice was calm, but steel underneath. I know what people need because I've lived it. That's expertise too. Silence. The council members exchanged glances. I move we table this for further review, Celeste said smoothly. Liora, work with Helen to develop the full proposal. We'll revisit next month. Seconded, one of the council members said quickly. The meeting moved on, but something had shifted. Liora had just claimed space at a table designed to exclude her, and Marcus had felt it. After the meeting, Darian found her in the library. Helen told me what you did. Proposing a new program on your first day? Too much? Perfect amount. He kissed her forehead. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed glass. Good. Mother wants to see us, both of us. They found Celeste in her office, reviewing Liora's proposal. She looked up as they entered. Sit. They sat. Celeste set down the papers. Interesting move today. I meant what I said, Liora replied. That program could actually help people. I'm sure it could. That's not what interests me. Celeste's gaze was piercing. What interests me is that you just outmaneuvered Marcus in front of the council. Made him look reactive while you looked proactive. That takes skill. Or desperation. Often the same thing. Celeste stood, moving to the window. I underestimated you, Miss Vale. I thought you'd be a useful tool, temporary, disposable even. She turned back. I was wrong. Is that an apology? It's an acknowledgement. Celeste's expression was unreadable. You've proven yourself more capable than I expected, strong enough to survive this world, smart enough to thrive in it. She paused. Which brings me to something I need to tell you both. Darian tensed. What? I knew the contract wouldn't stay hidden forever. Celeste's voice was matter of fact. I have copies. Backed up in 3 separate locations. Insurance in case Marcus tried exactly what he tried last night. Leora's stomach dropped. You still have copies? Of course. Do you think I'd destroy the only leverage I had? Celeste moved back to her desk. But here's what I've decided. I'm going to destroy them. All of them. Today. Why? Darian asked. Because you two have turned my calculated arrangement into something real. And I may be manipulative, but I'm not cruel. Celeste pulled a file from her drawer. This is the last copy. You'll watch me burn it. And then this marriage will be exactly what it appears to be. Your choice. Not mine. She struck a match. The paper caught. They watched it burn. Why now? Liora asked. Because I saw you at the meeting today. You weren't playing a role. You were being yourself. Fighting for something you believe in. Celeste's smile was slight. That's worth more than any contract. The ashes drifted in the fireplace. With them went the last evidence that this had ever been anything but real. Thank you, Darian said quietly. Don't thank me. Just don't make me regret this. Celeste waved them toward the door. Now go. I have work to do. Outside, Liora leaned against the wall. Did that just happen? I think so. Darian looked dazed. My mother just gave us her blessing. Your terrifying, manipulative mother. The very same. He pulled Liora close. We're free. Actually free. No contract. No leverage. Just us. Liora let that sink in. They were married because they chose to be, not because of money or manipulation or desperation. Because they wanted to be. I need to go see my family, she said suddenly. Now? Right now. They drove to the lower city together. Darian had stopped looking uncomfortable in her neighborhood, or at least he hid it better now. Tam opened the door. Leo, and the husband, didn't know you were coming. Surprise visit. Liora hugged him. Where's everyone? Dad's resting, Marin's at school. I was just... He stopped, seeing their expressions. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Liora took his hand. I just wanted to tell you something. This thing with Darian, it started as a deal, a way to help the family. I know. But it's not that anymore. It's real. I'm actually married to him because I want to be. Tam looked at Darian. You hurt her. I'll kill you. I told you that before. I remember. Good. Tam turned back to Liora. You happy? Yeah, I think I am. Then I'm happy for you. He pulled her into another hug. But you're still crazy. Wouldn't have it any other way. The months that followed were unlike anything Liora had imagined. She threw herself into the foundation work, developing her relief program with Helen's help. The council approved it, reluctantly, with Marcus voting against, but outvoted by the others. The first family they helped was a dock worker whose son needed surgery. Liora delivered the check herself, watched the father cry with relief. Thank you, he kept saying. You don't know what this means. But she did know. She knew exactly. Word spread. The program expanded. Liora started visiting the lower districts personally, meeting families, understanding their needs. She brought those stories back to the board, turned statistics into people, made the work real. You're changing things, Caroline said one afternoon over tea. People are talking. About you. About what you're doing. Good talking or bad talking? Both. But more good than bad, Caroline smiled. You're making them uncomfortable. That's how you know it's working. Darian's relationship with his family shifted too. Marcus kept his distance, but the open hostility faded into cold civility. Celeste treated Liora differently, not quite warmly, but with respect. And Darian himself changed, opened up, let people in, started attending council meetings instead of avoiding them, speaking up about policies that affected the lower districts. "You're making me a better person," he told Liora one night. "You're making yourself better. I'm just here. That's enough." 6 months became 8. 8 became 10. The end date they'd originally planned passed without mention. Then, one morning, Marcus appeared at breakfast. He looked older, tired. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. Liora nearly dropped her coffee. "What?" "You heard me." Marcus sat down uninvited. "I was wrong. About you. About this marriage. I spent months trying to prove it was fake. Turns out the only thing fake was my assumption that people can't change." "That's quite an admission," Darian said carefully. "Don't get used to it. I'm still not good at being wrong." Marcus looked at Liora. "But I've watched what you're doing with the foundation, the families you've helped, the changes you're pushing for. It's good work. Real work. Thank you. I also spent the last few months examining why I was so determined to destroy your marriage, and I realized—" He stopped, started again. "I was jealous. You found something real, partnership, someone who actually gives a damn about you. I never had that. Probably never will, so I tried to tear it down." Celeste had entered during his speech. She stood in the doorway, watching. "That takes courage to admit," she said, "or stupidity." Marcus stood. "Anyway, I'm done fighting this. You two won. Fair and square." He looked at Darian. "Take care of her. She's tougher than both of us, but that doesn't mean she doesn't need someone watching her back." "I know." Marcus left. The silence he left behind was strange, fragile. "Hell is frozen over," Darian said. "Apparently." Liora looked at Celeste. "Did you know he was going to do that?" "I suspected. Marcus has many faults, but he's not stupid. Eventually he sees reality." Celeste poured herself coffee. "Which brings me to something I've been meaning to discuss. I'm stepping down as foundation chair." "What?" Darian's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because I'm 73 and tired, and because the foundation needs new leadership, someone with vision, energy, connection to the people we're meant to serve." She looked at Liora. "I'm recommending you for the position." Leora's heart stopped. "Me?" "You've been doing the job anyway. Might as well make it official." Celeste's smile was slight. "Unless you don't think you can handle it." "I can handle it." "Then it's settled. Board votes next week, but it's a formality. The position's yours if you want it." Did she want it? Leadership of one of the most powerful charitable foundations in the city. Real power to make real change. "Yes," Liora said. "I want it." The vote was unanimous. Even Marcus voted in favor. Leora's first act as chair was to triple the emergency relief budget. Her second was to establish a scholarship program for children from the lower districts. Her third was to open a foundation office in her old neighborhood, accessible to the people who needed it most. "You're building an empire," Darian said, watching her review proposals late one night. "I'm building a bridge between the world I came from and the world I'm in now." Liora set down her pen. "Someone has to. I love watching you work." "That's a weird thing to love." "I love weird things." He pulled her to her feet. "Dance with me." "There's no music." "So?" They swayed together in the library. No rhythm but their own. Outside, the city sprawled in darkness. Inside, they'd built something that felt like home. A year after their wedding, Liora stood at a podium in the Grand Hall, the same place where she'd once felt like an imposter. Now she was giving the keynote address at the Foundation's annual gala. "I used to think survival was enough," she said, looking out at hundreds of faces. "Keep your family fed, pay the bills, make it through another day. But that's not living. That's enduring." She found Darian in the crowd. He smiled. "Real change happens when we stop accepting endurance as success, when we demand better, not just for ourselves, but for everyone." She gestured to the screens behind her, showing families the foundation had helped. "These people aren't statistics. They're not charity cases. They're us. One disaster away from losing everything, one helping hand away from building something better." The room was silent. This foundation has helped 300 families this year. Next year, we'll help 1,000. The year after, 10,000. Because that's what power is for, lifting people up, building bridges, proving that the world can be better than it is. She finished. The applause started slowly, then built. People stood. Darian was on his feet, pride clear on his face. Afterward, at the reception, people crowded around her, not with judgment or suspicion, with respect, with interest, with questions about how to help. "You did it," Caroline said, appearing at her elbow. "You actually did it. Changed everything." "Not everything, not yet. But you're getting there." Liora looked around the room at the people she'd won over, the systems she'd started changing, the bridges she'd built between worlds that were never supposed to touch. Marcus approached, glass in hand. "Hell of a speech." "Thanks. I mean it. You've turned this foundation into something that actually matters." He paused. "I'm sorry I fought you so hard at the beginning." "You were protecting your family. I get it." "Was I? Or was I just being a bastard?" Marcus's smile was self-deprecating. "Either way, you're good for Darian, good for all of us. I'm glad I was wrong." He walked away. Liora felt Darian's arm settle around her waist. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Home. The estate wasn't the cold, imposing place it had been a year ago. It was where she woke up next to the person she loved, where she planned programs that changed lives, where she'd stopped surviving and started living. "Yeah," she said. "Let's go home." 2 years later, Liora stood in a building that used to be a warehouse. Now it was the Vale Community Center, funded by the foundation, named for her mother, dedicated to helping families in crisis. Her father stood beside her, leaning on a cane but standing. The surgery had worked, not perfectly. He'd never work the docks again. But enough. Enough to walk Marin to school. Enough to hug his children. Enough to see what his daughter had built. "Your mother would be proud," he said, voice rough. "I hope so." "I know so." He squeezed her hand. "You did what she always wanted, made things better." Tam appeared, dressed in his school uniform. He'd gone back, was thriving, talking about university. "Leo, they're ready for you." The ribbon cutting was simple. Local families gathered, press cameras rolling. Liora cut the ribbon, officially opening the center. "This is for everyone who's ever been told they don't matter," she said, "for every family that's fallen through the cracks, for every person who just needs one break to change their life." She looked at her father, her siblings, at Darian standing in the back, watching her with that expression that still made her heart skip. "We all deserve better than survival. This center is a start." That night, back at the estate, Darian found her on the balcony. "Big day." "Huge day." Liora leaned against him. "I still can't believe it's real sometimes, all of this." "What part?" "Any of it. The center, the foundation. Us." She turned to face him. 3 years ago, I was desperate, broke, out of options. And now you're changing the world. I'm trying to. You're succeeding." Darian kissed her. "And I get to watch. Lucky me. Lucky us." They stood together, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, families were getting help they needed. Children were going to school. People were being lifted up instead of left behind. And it all started with a desperate girl who'd accepted an impossible deal. "Do you ever regret it?" Liora asked. "The way this started?" "Never." Darian's answer was immediate. "I regret that you had to be desperate for it to happen. But I don't regret you, us, any of it." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." Inside, the phone rang. Work, probably. Another family in need. Another program to develop. Another bridge to build. But for this moment, Liora stayed where she was. With the person she'd accidentally fallen in love with. In the life she'd accidentally built. Proving that sometimes the boldest choices led to the most unexpected destinations. And that survival, while necessary, was never the end goal. Living was. 5 years after their wedding, Liora addressed the council directly. Not as Darian's wife. As herself. As the head of the most effective charitable foundation in the city. "I'm proposing a systemic change," she said, presenting her plan. "Not just helping families in crisis, but preventing the crises, living wages, healthcare access, education funding, real structural change. The council members shifted uncomfortably. This was bigger than charity. This was politics. That's beyond the foundation's scope, one of them said. Is it? Or have we just been thinking too small? Liora met each of their eyes. We have the resources, the influence, the moral obligation. Why aren't we using them? Because that kind of change threatens existing power structures, Marcus said. Then he smiled. Which is exactly why we should do it. I'm in. One by one, the others agreed. Not all of them, not easily, but enough. The changes started slowly, then faster. The Thorn name, once associated with wealth and distance, became associated with progress, with justice, with the radical idea that everyone deserved a real chance. And Liora, the girl who'd once been invisible to these people, was at the center of it all. Years later, when journalists asked how she'd done it, she'd always give the same answer. I stopped accepting the world as it was and started demanding what it could be. But the real answer was simpler. She'd taken the worst moment of her life, the desperation, the fear, the impossible choice, and turned it into fuel. For change, for growth, for building something that mattered. And she'd found love in the process, not the fairy tale kind, the real kind. Messy and complicated and built on honesty and partnership, and two people who refused to settle for less than they deserved. On their 10th anniversary, Darian took her back to the diner where they'd eaten pie after the disastrous gala. Same booth, same pie. Remember this? He asked. How could I forget? I was terrified. You didn't show it. I'm good at hiding things. Not anymore. He took her hand. I can read you now. Every thought, every feeling. Scary, isn't it? Terrifying, he smiled. Also wonderful. They ate their pie. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, two people who'd started as strangers, become partners, then allies, then friends, then lovers, sat together in comfortable silence. I love you, Liora said. Simple, true. I love you too. Darian's grip tightened on her hand. Thank you. For what? For being desperate enough to say yes, for being brave enough to stay, for being stubborn enough to change everything. You helped. I followed your lead. They left the diner hand in hand, walking into a future they'd built together. A future where a florist from the lower city and a reluctant aristocrat had rewritten the rules and proven that the boldest choices really could change everything. The girl who'd once thought survival was enough had learned to demand more, and in demanding more, she'd created a legacy that would outlive them both. Not bad for a deal that started as a lie. Not bad at all.